in this statement. So I will begin. So in last lecture, we are learning about a very important topic, that is the relation between homoeopathic materia medica and repertory. And so far we have seen certain important relation that homeopathic materia medica forms the base of repertory. And practical aid of materia medica is repertory. Then repertory is a bridge that gulps the gap between homeopathic materia medica and case. So I have also discussed this point in the last lecture, but today I will again discuss this topic in a brief. Mainly, how to write long answer question. If this specifically, this sentence is asked. Repertory is a bridge that gulps the gap between homeopathic materia medica and case. I have explained in detail in the previous lecture, but I think it was not understood. So again, I will today guide you how to write this long answer questions if it is asked. Now in this, it is essay type of question. You can go anywhere, you can start anywhere, and you can go anywhere. It is not like that. You have to write an essay with respect to this sentence only. So whenever you will write down a long answer question, few things are expected. You will have to define what is repertory. You will have to define what is homeopathic materia medica. You will have to define what is a case, and then you will mention in brief that all these three important subjects, all these three important aspects includes nothing but the symptom. And it is always required that we match similarity between the case and between a drug of a homeopathic materia medica. Now, whenever we have to match something, there are two things are required. Two things are required is that there should be similarities of object. That means you cannot compare a parrot with lion, isn't it? Both things are totally different. Again, you cannot compare between a flower and a crop. Again, it is altogether different. So similarity of object is one thing is required, and another feature to establish similarity is there should be also similarities in the or similarities of order, or similarity should also exist at the level of order. Then when we look at this two essential conditions for matching similarities, one is whenever we try to match similarity, two basic things are required. The objects should be very similar, and order in which we are going to compare, it should be also similar. Then when it comes to the field of homeopathy, we have to match what? We have to match patient's picture, which has been narrated in a case, and we have to match that patient's picture with homeopathic materia medica image of a drug. Now, what happens when we attempt to establish similarity in between these two things? Let us first try to understand whether these two things, that is a case and homeopathic materia medica, has these two things in similar, whether the symptom and the order is same. If we say the symptom is a very common, case also includes common, homeopathic materia medica also includes symptom. So that one thing is common. But when it comes to the question of similarity of order, we find that order is totally different. In case, it is a natural order. Everything is happening very naturally. Vital force is disturbed, then it express in terms of symptoms. It do not express all the symptoms at one day, but over a period of time. But the same order of evolution In homeopathic materia medica, it is artificial. Now, let us go in depth of this point, how the order in homeopathic materia medica is artificial. So in homeopathic materia medica, we all know that it is a compilation of drug proving, and when this compilation of drug proving is done with an object of evolution of homeopathic materia medica, the natural order of symptoms given by prover is not respected. What is respected is the symptoms occur in that region is given importance, and say there are five provers have five symptoms related to head, compile all those symptoms under the head. Then 10 provers will have some symptoms related to the nose, compile it under nose. So in this way, even though the prover's order of symptom is natural, when it comes in the homeopathic materia medica, it becomes artificial. So this basically two things essential for matching similarity is not there between homeopathic materia medica and case. Only there is a similarity at the level of symptom level. Similarity at the level of order is not at all there. So finding similarity in between these two aspects is very difficult. Further, when we study homeopathic materia medica, the vastness of homeopathic materia medica creates few more difficulties. Because of that vastness of homeopathic materia medica, there are more chances of getting only partial similarity, and there are more chances of error because one cannot memorize all the symptoms given in the homeopathic materia medica. Forget the question of memorizing, even for a given case. It is very rare opportunity where one can refer to the whole of our materia medica. So, because of this lack of complete reference, lack of this memorization, there are more and more chances of error. So far, it is very clear that there is a gap in between this homeopathic materia medica and case. This is the one part of your answer. In that one part of your answer, you will establish, yes, there is a gap. There is a gap in the order, and there is a gap is there because of vastness of homeopathic materia medica. Then the second part of the answer will be like this. But when we use repertory means when we follow the process of repertorization, it increases the accuracy of objective similarity at symptom level, because we already seen that homeopathic materia medica, it do not repertory do not restrict materia medica, but it makes us more and more available. It makes us available at our fingertips. So because of this, what happens when we use repertory, we get a maximum access to the pages of homeopathic materia medica, to the symptoms of homeopathic materia medica, and because of this, what happens? There is a chances of accuracy of objective similarity increases, and mostly this similarity is at the level of symptom. Then the question comes of the similarity at the level of order. So this is only the job of repertory, that it will establish similarity only at the level of symptom, and that too in terms of mathematical grades. But this function of similarity at the level of order, it cannot be done with the repertory. It has to be done with the careful study of homeopathic materia medica at the following level. We have to see the order of evolution of symptoms. For example, pharyngitis. Let us take an example of pharyngitis, a very common disease condition. So how there are some medicines which has the complaints beginning on the right side and going towards left side. Some medicines have complaints beginning on the left side going towards right side. Some medicines have alternating sides. So all this order of evaluation of symptom is again carefully studied. Then onset of the symptom, whether it is a gradual, whether it is a rapid, whether it is a gradual onset but rapid decline, etc. It is to be further studied at the level of materia medica. Then the duration. For example, uh, fever. If we take a symptom of fever in aconite, the fever is very short time period. But in case of remedies like Cocculus indicus, Baptisia, the duration of fever is much prolonged. Same thing uh, at the level of progress. Now, for example, if there is inflammation, the drug like arsenic, drug like lacacid will go at the level of gangrene. But the drugs like aconite and drugs like ferrumphos will limit themselves only up to the stages of inflammation. So all these things have to be carefully evaluated. It has to be carefully studied at the level of materia medica. And then similarly, at the level of pathology, we are also going to carry this study. And accordingly, one more thing, we must study the miasm. So burning, let's take a common example of burning in the eyes. Now this burning in the eyes is present in the aconite, it is present in the sulfur, it is present in the medurinum, it is also present in the merxor. But the miasm behind all these symptoms is different. In case of aconite and sulfur, the miasm is soric. In case of medurinum, the miasm is psychotic. In case of syphilinum and merxol, the miasm is syphilitic. So one will also have to study the miasm of case and miasm of remedy. So all these things we are going to study at the level of materia medica, and we are going to find out which drug has similar order of evolution symptom, which drug has a similar onset, duration, progress, pathology, miasm, as like that of a case, and then we are going to come to the conclusion of the final medicine. So in this way, the use of repertory. So in the first part, we have understood that the repertory what? Repertory does what? There is a existence of gap between homeopathic materia medica and case. That gap is because of vastness of materia medica, and that gap is because of difference between the order. But when we study repertory, one gap of which is there because of vastness of symptoms, it is minimized, and the repertory will suggest you a group of remedies. And further, when you study this group of remedies at the level of materia medica, the other difficulty of order, that is similarity of order, will be also be dissolved. It will be also be solved. So this is how we can prove that repertory really gulps or it bridges the gap between the homeopathic materia medica and case. Now we'll go to the third or the fourth relationship. I think it is the previous one is more clear now. You again listen to the video. So the fourth relationship is that repertory is a mechanical and analytical work, while homeopathic materia medica is a synthetic work. Now, before going further, we'll understand what is analysis. Analysis is what we used to do in the chemistry, what we used to do in the biology. Is that we are going to break up. For example, there was a one exercise, identify anion and cation in a given compound. So that is a analysis. So the word analysis means we have to break up the things and we have to identify the separate elements. The same thing is happening when the repertories are constructed. For example, if there are 10 symptoms in front of a repertory compiler, he will study those symptoms. If he is following the Keynesian plan arrangement, he will study those 10 symptoms under what is the side, right or left or one-sided. Then he will further study time, daytime, morning, night, forenoon, afternoon, etc. Then he will study the modalities of that 10 symptoms. Then he will also study the extension if it is possible. And then once he study these 10 symptoms, once he breaks up these 10 symptoms into side, time, modality, extension, and then he will just mechanically arrange these 10 symptoms under this similarity of side, time, modality, and extension, and there will be a evolution of evolution of repertory on the use of Kantian philosophy. If it is a Boningussen's philosophy, it will be if the person who is follower of Boninghussen, he will have to study location, sensation, modality, and concomitant of those 10 symptoms, and then after careful study of those 10 symptoms under this four headings, we will arrange those 10 symptoms under these different headings, and these headings or subheadings will be later on be called as a rubric or sub-rubric in a repertory. So this is how while construction of a repertory, the analysis is done, and all this analysis is also kind of mechanism. If there is no logic, it is just a mechanical work. Whatever the symptoms are there, it has to be broke up into, or it has to break into different categories, and further it is to be indexed. And in this way, this slide explains us the repertory is a mechanical and analytical work. Then further we'll see what is the meaning of synthesis. So synthesis means reunion of something, and this reunion will give rise to some different form. So let us take an example of Ganeshotsav. So in the Ganeshotsav, what we do, different kinds of things we are using for the purpose of decoration. Some we are using some flowers, we are using some thermocol, we are using some gums, we are using some ribbons, we are using some wooden structure or metal structure, and this 5 or 6 atoms, if you give in the hand of 6 different persons, they will reunite all these 6 things into a different form, and they will create a different images. So what happens in the same the similar things happens also in the homeopathic materia medica. So Hahnemann has given us only materia medica pura. Herring symptom has given us a symptom collection. T.F. Allen's encyclopedia has given a symptom collection. But the latter authors like Margaret Tyler, James Tyler Kane, Niranjan Moti, Niranjan Mohanty, Clark's J.H. Clark, all these things, all these authors have done what? They have reunited all these symptoms according to their experience, according to their study, and they have given different kind of images. Just to give example, the Boric will write something like he will construct all these symptoms, and he will just leave a comment that according to Boric, aconite is a great remedy for the first stage of inflammation. If you read Kent will write what aconite is a great remedy when it is indicated by the triad of symptoms like anxiety, restlessness, and fear of death. Then if you come to Clark will say aconite is a good remedy when there is a ailments from exposure to north wind, ailments from exposure to cold chills, ailments from exposure to sudden changes of weather. If you read pathogenesis by Richard Hughes, he will emphasize that most of the complaints of aconite will come it comes out very, very suddenly, like a strong. If you read again clinical medica by Farrington, same symptoms which have been given by Dr. Samuel Hahnemann. Farrington will say that aconite is the drug has to be compared with respect to the serum sauce. It has to be respected with, it has to be compared with gelsemium, and he will say that aconite is the most rapid drug in the evolution of order. It is more suitable for the first stage of inflammation, etc., etc. So, what point I want to emphasize is that the various authors of Materia Medica, similarly, using the same symptoms, they have reunited these symptoms, and they have created different types of images. Now, I think it is clear. Now we'll see how this repertory evolution exists. That we already see that the symptoms are broken into different parts, and then it is indexed. And while this indexing of the symptom, certain mechanisms like alphabetical mechanism, like arrangement under the various heading, it is followed. So from the evolution of repertory, from understanding the mechanism how the repertories are evolved, it is very clear that it is a analytical and mechanical work. While in case of homeopathic materia medica, are evolved in a different manner. So first it is usually the symptoms are collected, then it is synthesis, reunion of all these symptoms, and all these two things together gives rise to certain images, and these images are to be written in the mind of the person who is studying the homeopathic materia medica, and in this way we can prove that homeopathic materia medica is a synthetic word where a reunion of symptoms takes place, and it gives rise to different patterns. It gives rise to different images. Then therefore, it is said that repertory is analytical and mechanical work, and homeopathic materia medica is a synthetic work. Now, same thing we can say with respect to the use of repertory. When we use repertory, what we are doing? We are just doing the same thing, taking the case, analyzing the case, converting the symptoms into different rubrics, and then just doing mechanical repertorization. And when it comes to the final stage of differentiation, it is given to the materia medica, and in that materia medica, the drugs are differentiated, the drugs are studied, and evolution of image with the help of that symptoms are take place, and the drugs are finally differentiated. So remember how in the use of repertory also it is analytical mechanical work, and again in the differentiation homeopathic materia medica we are using it for building the images, for giving rise to the different symptoms. Then the last relationship is that homeopathic materia medica is a final court of appeal. Now it is in the province. Province means Karyakaksha. Province means it is a function of repertory to suggest, and that of a homeopathic materia medica is to decide. And both these functions of suggesting and concluding, both these functions of repertory of suggesting and the function of materia medica of concluding, it is kept in a such a perfect balance that by finally the combined use of both this subjects, homeopathic materia medica and repertory, by keeping these two things in a perfect balance, we achieve the simillimum, and therefore it is said that homeopathic materia medica is a final court of appeal. Now, how it is further achieved? when we use homeopathic materia medica and when we use repertory for the purpose of finding out the similimum. So repertory will always gives us the group of remedies depending upon the objective similarity in terms of gradations. And when it comes to the homeopathic materia medica, the homeopathic materia medica will carefully assess, will carefully study the different remedies suggested by repertory. The further study at the level of homeopathic materia medica is done, and finally, the final selection of the remedies is carried out. And so both these functions are in a perfect balance. So therefore, homeopathic materia medica is a final court of appeal. Now there is a corollary, or the homeopathic materia medica is compared with the final court. Somebody compares it as a supreme court. Now what happens? There is a system of various courts. First, when you have certain dispute, you first go to the taluka court, then you go to the district court, then you go to the regional high court, then after that regional high court, you go to the Bombay High Court, or again High Court which has been there for that specific state, and then from that state, the final court is the Supreme Court of our India. So same uh, hierarchy in the remedy selection is also followed. So when we study the repertory for a given case, or when we repertorize for a given case, what happens is that it is just like an appeal at a lower level of court, and that lower level of court, whatever gives the decision, there are chances that there is possibility that if you don't like that judgment, you can go always in the higher court. You can always appeal to that decision given by the lower court. So if you don't agree to the decisions given by repertory, okay, no problem. The final court, that is homeopathic materia medica, is always there in exerting its choice, exerting its final verdict, exerting its final judgment. And once the homeopathic materia medica says that if this is the final remedy for this case, then there is no mechanism of appealing it further. Then in the conclusion of the in conclusion, uh, we can say that the homeopathic materia medica and repertory are not inimical to each other, or the relationship is a kind of complementary relationship, and it is just a kind of symbiosis. So you understand what is symbiosis means? What it is, a give and take relationship. So it is always a complementary relationship between repertory and homeopathic materia medica always exists. Something is taken from repertory into homeopathic materia medica, that two arrows which you focus. So the mutual exchange is always there in between repertory and homeopathic materia medica. So what is taken from homeopathic materia medica is a symptom, and what is again by using that repertory, using that symptoms, the repertorization gives you again a group of remedies, and it is again finally final choice or the final verdict is of homeopathic materia medica. And this is where we end this topic, relationship of remedies, or a relationship of repertory and homeopathic materia medica. Is not inimical relationship, but it is always a kind of complementary relationship. It is always a kind of symbiotic relationship.